G'day ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Aussie Starcraft, where we are super psyched to be bringing you some more games from MLG's Game On. This time we're casting some games from the Group D stages, so day 4 of the tournament. It's been a pretty epic 3 days of gaming thus far, so super psyched to see what day 4 brings us. In the top right hand corner, playing for Team Root, it's going to be Illusion as our orange Terran player. In the top left hand corner is our purple Zerg, it's going to be Avril Lavigne. For those of you who don't know, this is Aces Scarlett, one of our alternate tags. So super psyched to be casting a Scarlett game. It's been a little while since we've seen her on the channel, but she's been having a lot of success lately, in 2013 in particular, so this should be some excellent Terran versus Zerg action. Habitation Station obviously been the source of some epic conflicts lately, particularly due to the interesting dynamics of the map, one of those being the high yield mineral patches that are just placed so close together here, particularly in a PvZ matchup. This just makes such a interesting dynamic. Things like Mutalisks and drops across the gap make it very active, as well as the fact that you can lay siege to these locations from the low ground. So just so many options for both our players, and we'll see what particular routes these two decide to use to try and undermine each other and move their way through to the round of 8. Looks like Scarlett's going to be throwing down her expansion here at the natural, and going to be hatch before pool. It is a fairly large map, so rush distance generally indicates that hatch before pool fairly safe in this match. We do have gas first for Illusion, so I imagine we will be seeing an early Reaper or two out of him. And Reaper's obviously very useful for scouting. It's virtually the go-to move. If you see Terran grabbing gas before barracks, chances are it's going to be either a Reaper for the scouting, or it's going to be a very quick factory. So they're the two standard openings we're used to seeing. Terran has sort of evolved in the last few months from what we saw a lot of, which was the 3cc sort of mineral heavy open, into a much quicker sort of gas-based play. Things like early Reapers and quick factories, particularly for the Hellions against Zerg, make it a very different sort of dynamic to what we were used to seeing, perhaps in the mid to late stages of 2013. So interesting to see what 2014 brings for us. This Reaper going to be moving out across the map now, and the ramp not as large as you would expect, so the Reaper not able to exploit its jumping ability perhaps as much as it would in other maps, but certainly very useful for the early game scouting. Looks like Scarlett's spawning pool is completed, so first two queens underway, and it looks like Scarlett fairly content to open here without gas, which is fairly characteristic of Scarlett's play. Going to be getting a few Reapers out here to stall that, Zerglings out to stall that Reaper, until of course the queens come out and are able to deter it even further. The Reaper, of course, if he doesn't make a play for the low ground now, may well actually get pinned up here. Gonna be a close call as the queen pops out, but queen a little bit too busy injecting lava, not going to be able to clean up that Reaper on its way through. Looks like Illusion's going to be throwing down a CC of his own, factory as well flowing up, as well as the second gas being taken. So that's quite early for second gas for a Terran player. Generally indicative of some more mech play, or a very quick sort of timed push with 1-1 upgrades. So we'll see how Illusion decides to use that. Scarlett, of course, another two queens on the way. One of the reasons Scarlett opens gasless is to improve her creep spread. Creep spread's some of the best in the game. You can see already at the 5-minute mark we have two queens on the field dedicated to the hatcheries and injecting lava, two queens spreading creep. So Scarlett's creep tends to take off very quickly and not stop. Often by the 10 or 15 minute mark, the creep can be well across the halfway point of the field. This early marine sort of push backing up the Reapers, unfortunately going to be falling on deaf ears. Those two queens more than capable of holding it back. Scarlett grabbing her first gas, still droning very heavily behind. If we check the income tab, we can see it's actually almost 40 harvesters to 25, and that's with a group of 6 about to pop. So very heavy macro opening for Scarlett. Of course, with the two queens on the ramp, she's got a quite easy way to block this ramp and make it fairly easy to defend. Biggest potential threat for Scarlett, obviously these Hellions that in construction now. Obviously they're produced 2 at a time. If these Hellions slip inside the main base, that could be absolutely devastating to her macro. So The Queens here going to be ensuring that they can't do that. Obviously the third base is under siege. Creep spread going to continue spreading though. And these two creeping Queens going to be trying to defend this base as best they can. That poor Marine catches a spike to the face and goes down. We have +1 melee upgrades on the way for Scar. We have Stim Pack now underway for Illusion as well as a first Viking. So interesting to see the Viking out before, but Viking obviously very useful for denying things like these Overlord scouts, particularly this Overlord. If this Overlord can be cleaned up, opens a lot of avenues for dropping, particularly this base when it's established, and also Scarlett's main base. So you can see Scarlett tending not to put a lot of her tech structures down in her main base. So it'd be interesting to see where she throws her future tech down, though Scarlett is certainly a big proponent of the Zergling Baneling Muta, so I imagine we won't be seeing any more tech structure until this layer is concluded, and I imagine at that point we'll see a serious investment in Mule, as Scarlett's Muta control definitely some of the best in the business at the moment. So certainly keen to see how Scarlett deals with this, particularly this interesting timing push out of Illusion. It's a combination of Hellions for the Zerglings and Marauders for the Queen. I think it's got the capacity to do a lot of damage here. These Zerglings getting some nice surrounds though is certainly going to be able to rob Illusion of some of his momentum, but particularly as these Marauders join this force, particularly dangerous. This push has the potential to do serious damage to Scarlett's defenses and economy. Going to be bringing down some additional Queens to support, producing another Queen in her main base for the lava injects, but Scarlett now up to 5 Queens. There's one thing a lot of Zerg players take for granted. When you're down on lava and trying to produce units to defend yourself, it's always a good idea to think about the units that don't require lava. Things like the Queens, always a great choice for defending. Requires 0 lava and can be built with just minerals, and they are fairly sturdy. So you can see Ground Carapace just about ready to finish up, so 1-1 will be finished for Scarlett. +2 melee attacks going to be following that right up. So Scarlett with a definite upgrade advantage. Illusion going to be scanning to push this creep back. Very important choice. Doesn't want to be engaged on the creep, so wants to push that back as far as possible. Scarlett actually producing a few static defense here. I love the choice of this static defense. Actually going to be a drop in the main here with these Marauders. Actually almost going to manage to snipe the Spire, and Spire gets cancelled. What a pickup for Illusion. That's going to delay the Mutalisks by an extra minute and a bit. So definitely a crucial snipe for Illusion that's going to set Scarlett back considerably. Scarlett obviously looking for those Mutalisks to prevent future drops and begin harassing Illusion's base. So Illusion couldn't have timed that better if he'd tried. Big Hellion drop into the main base. You can see Scarlett moving up some additional Overlords for scanning, but Illusion actually has a major force here in Scarlett's main base. Now they can actually clog up the ramp of these Hellions. It looks like that's exactly what Illusion unfortunately positioning them not optimally there. Some of the Zerglings able to manage to make it around, and that little bit of a fumble there from Illusion, but I like the idea. Clogging up the ramp with Marines and Hellions would have allowed him to do massive damage to the drone line. Unfortunately just narrowly missed out on that opportunity. A few more Zerglings popped out, are going to be able to clean up a lot of these Hellions and Marauders. Queens really need to be able to get their way up here. A creep tumor or two here going to be crucial. Scarlett going to pop that down, and the medevac's going to have to beat a retreat. So that little bit of creep that not joining the base obviously was a big issue there for Scarlett. Delayed the Queens considerably in being able to assist in that fight. So always want to be sure to drop those bases, particularly if you haven't done it by layer tech. Throw down your Overlords, throw down the creep with those. That'll allow a temporary connection until you can spare the energy to drop a real tumor. And though we can see Scarlett's creep spread certainly going to be pushing out. 12-minute mark, almost reached the halfway in one of the lanes. The top lane obviously has been pushed back several times. Quite crucial for Illusion to do that. Otherwise he can suffer from significant damage by fighting on the creep. Going to get surrounded quite easily. Now we can see Scarlett's first Mutalisk on the field, and Scarlett willing to engage with these directly based on the fact that there is actually quite few Marines in the composition. Not often that we see Mutas fly straight for the head-on engagement, but with this Hellion Marauder force it does make a fair bit of sense to engage. Marines count only now starting to rise. We can see Marines being produced 7 at a time. Nice Baneling connection there at the end, going to mop up most of these Marines. And both our players going to be hovering about 95 95 to 100 odd supply. So this very tight game with a lot of action straight out. We have a Viking trying to threaten the Overlords. Unfortunately, the Mutalisks are going to pick him up and send him down. That poor Viking pilot going down in a blaze of smoke. And what's it? Is there an Ultralisk impale on it? That's a little bit. I gotta say that one, that little bit of design favors the Terran just a little bit. For some reason, we get to look at all these sick Zerg trophies floating around. I suppose they use the tile set from the HOTS missions, all those missions that you fight through the labs, obviously freeing Ultralisks and Brutalists and all those cool shenanigans. It was a pretty epic campaign, I've got to say. I thoroughly enjoyed it. One of the best single player campaigns I've played in a long time in any game, not just in StarCraft in general, but certainly looking forward to the Legacy of the Void. Looks like Illusion's going to be moving out with a straight Marine force, attempting to continue to push back this creep. This time there's much bigger investment in tumors here. Scarlett obviously wanting to take the gold expansion, doesn't want this creep to be broken in crucial time. The Banelings able to do a lot of damage when they're on the creep, but as you can see, Stim Marine's going to be able to fall back and be able to avoid the majority of these Baneling detonations. Scarlett though managing to follow through with just amazing style, clean up all the Marines bar this little group of 10 here. A few more Banelings going to be able to force those back, but ideally Scarlett needs to push this creep forward just a bit further. Very dangerous to have the creep sitting back here at this point. Going to be hard to move back and forward, particularly between engagements here in this choke point and potential drops up in a third base. The elevator play very dangerous for a Zerg player to have to deal with, and Scarlett's going to need just a bit more creep in this top location to be able to do it. Try to take out that Widowmine. Unfortunately, the Queen does go down, but fortuitously that Widowmine targeting the second Queen, and the reason that's a benefit is that it could have done massive damage to the Zerglings and Banelings, which were actually right next to it at the time. That Widowmine actually doing quite a bit of friendly fire damage, so Scarlett coming out ahead on these Widowmine connections certainly could be taking a lot more damage than she is. They've got to be careful to replace those Queens. The Queens have gone down, and Scarlett actually quite low on the Queen count, down to 3 Queens, which for Scarlett is quite low. We'll see if she chooses to replace those anytime soon. If we check out the upgrades tab, we can see it's 2 upgrades to both sides. In production, not a lot for our players. We have +2 flyer attacks on the way. No more upgrades for our Terran player at the moment. 3-3 would be a certain buff for Illusion. The Marines with 3-3 upgrades just incredibly effective. This medevac, unfortunately, actually not going to get sniped by the Marines, and this is where this ledge becomes so very crucial. Things like the creep on the low ground is going to be vitally important for these engagements. We've got to be careful with the Widowmine. Scarlett being very careful to try and detonate those one at a time, but Illusion able to do a lot of this damage, exploiting the edge here and lifting up just a few Marines at a time. Very frustrating play to have to deal with as a Terran player, though if he's not careful, those that medevac's flirting with death. The Mutalisks able to one-shot that if it stays there for even a moment too long. Massive group of Zerglings and Banelings here. Got to be super careful to avoid these Widowmines. So that Widowmine actually getting cleaned up without detonating, surprisingly. And Scarlett just rolling forward over Illusion's force. Illusion going to suffer here. It looks like nice Marine splits is going to prevent him from taking too much damage. And Illusion actually managing to come out of that engagement quite well. The consistent creep denial here certainly going to be paying dividends. A drop down at Scarlett's 5th base location is going to do a lot of damage here. Zergling's not going to be enough to clean up, but this Mutalisk and Baneling force is going to take it down. Unfortunately, Hatchery does go down. That's going to open the way for Illusion to drop the high yield and take out some more workers. So we can see Illusion's harassment and base denial certainly top notch in this game, consistently denying these bases and messing with the mining. So Illusion doing a great job with that. A lot of Marines coming out. Actually, we have the first Thor on the way. This is very important. Thor is going to do massive damage to those Mutalisks if they're not controlled spot on. And Illusion managing to deny those tumors, and that is a big deal. Those tumors would have spread creep vitally to this location and made it very difficult for Illusion to to take up a position against that edge as he has been in the previous engagements. Scarlett rolling forward here, but we have a lot of Widow Mines reinforcing along with these Marines. Widow Mine detonation's not the best at the moment. No kills on the first one, 3 on the second one. Second Thor here, they've got to be so careful with those Mulas. Massive splash damage is going to force the Mulas back until they can heal. More Zerglings are on the way though we have a few Hero Marines here trying to take out the gold base. They will be cleaned up by the Mulas quick smart. And Scarlett actually managing to make her way with the creep all the way across through the second lane, almost to Illusion's expansions here. So very, very important there, and it's good to see Scarlett getting active with her Mutalisk. Going to be able to damage this base and deny mining for some time, and that's crucially important here. Any denial that Scarlett can do, very important. Gold yield just so important for Terran players. They can macro so many units off. As we can see, 17 Marines in production at a time, and that is so hard for Terran players. It was so hard, sorry, for Zerg players to try and keep up with. Scarlett's macro may be incredible, as you can see, starting to break down here. The 17 Marines at a time, very difficult to keep up with. No Zerglings or Banelings on the field. It's actually 170 supply to 120. This is looking very difficult for Scarlett to deal with. These Marines up here on the high ground. Oh, and the Mutalisk unfortunately flying into range of these Thors, and Illusion just taking up a devastating position by this high yield, actually constructing missile turrets here, and we haven't seen that before on Habitation Station. But Illusion is getting dug in here Terran style, doesn't want to be shifted. That's going to be very difficult for both the Zerglings to get through and the Banelings. So these Marines are going to be able to annihilate the Mutalisk, and it's going to be GG as Scarlett taps out at game number 1. So Illusion able to take a game off Scarlett in what was a pretty epic conflict between these two players. So Illusion's up 1 game to 0. It is a best of 3 series, so of course Scarlett more than capable of coming back here in this series. This is from the group stages of day 4, so we've got plenty of day 4 action left ahead of us. We'll cast the rest of this series, and then we're going to flick across and cast some of the other great best of 3s in this matchup. So don't go anywhere, guys. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, by all means please do. We've got stacks more awesome MLG game on action coming up right after this, so check it out here on Aussie StarCraft. Thanks guys, we'll catch you in the next cast.